We were talking about some of the prominent directors or writers on Maverick. You mentioned a few. Are there episodes that you particularly recall with fondness?
Yeah, there was a wonderful episode. I remember Roy came to me and he said, Jim, I'm going to write the script. And he said, I got one guy that sits on the porch and whittles, either you or Jack, and the other guy comes in and does a swindle and a sting operation. And what happened was, I said, I'll take the one sitting on the porch. I want to sit there and whittle. I just wanted to get off my feet. But it was kind of a scattergood Baines thing, you know, sitting there and whittling, and people come by. And a guy had swindled me out of some money. And they said, you get your money back? I said, no, I'm working on it. And that's about all I said during that whole thing was I'm working on it, while Jack Kelly was doing a swindle and stealing the money back from the other guy. And so I took the other role. It was called Shady Deal at Sunny Acres. Yes. And I thought that was probably as definitive a Rockford as you're going to, I mean Maverick, as you're going to get.
And didn't you also do a very funny takeoff on
Gunsmoke?
Gunsmoke?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Called Gunshy.
Gunshy, yeah. And Ben Gage did Jim Arness's part. And a wonderful little character actor did Dennis Weaver's part. And we're going along at about the first day or so in shooting that, and it was very funny. It was very funny. We were really putting it to them pretty good. But they were afraid of it. They were afraid of poking fun of a big hit series, you know. And I noticed the guy doing Dennis Weaver wasn't limping. I said, why isn't he limping? He said, oh, that's a little too much, Jim. I said, no, if you're going to do it, do it. So I put a little thing in there, a little scene where he comes in and he's limping. He came in the sheriff's office, and I said, you're limping, did you get hurt? He said, you know, a dead blame horse stepped on my toe and it hurts like thunder. And I said, well, you know, you ought to keep that. It gives you character. and from then on, he limped through the whole show.
Because you were on ABC, and ABC wasn't, you know, they used to say it was 2.5 networks, and ABC was the half.
Yeah.
So Maverick must have been one of the real bulwarks of that network.
Oh, yeah, there was Maverick and Cheyenne and Sugarfoot and, oh my goodness. I can't remember all of them. There were 5 or 6 Westerns and a couple of well, no, more than that, 3 or 4 of the Alaskans and stuff like that. They were pretty much the backbone of ABC.
Yep. But Maverick was different. He had a different concept. What was the concept, actually, of Maverick?
It's the anti-hero. Everybody else was steely-eyed and, boy, they straight shooters and all that. And Maverick, he didn't want to fight. He didn't want a gunfight. You know, he'd rather smile and laugh and whatever. And he was the reluctant hero, and that really kind of gave us room to poke fun at all the others. You know, we did that in Rockford later too. The same thing, really. And
so of the hundreds of television shows, not many have the kind of legs that Maverick has displayed. Even today, Maverick is a magic name.
Well, the name is because it's used in so many different ways. You know, there's the Dallas Maverick basketball team, which are named after me, by the way, because I was one of the original owners. But the Maverick has a connotation. It was the name Maverick was from Samuel Maverick, who was a Texan, a big rancher down in Texas. And what would happen, a calf would get lost or something roam off the range, and guys would see it, they said, oh, that's a Maverick. And that's how it became away from the herd, somebody different, because of, you know, a lost calf that had no mother, whatever.
Were you concerned at all that you'd be so identified with this role that everybody would only know you as Bret Maverick?
That was a concern, yeah, because what do you do after Maverick? You know, if you're so well known in the one thing, when that runs its course, where are you after that? So that bothered me, and I ended up leaving Maverick after 3 years.
Weren't fans referring to you as Maverick?
They still do. They refer to me as Maverick and Rockford and whatever. I've done 50 movies or so. They very seldom called me any of those names.
The power of television.
You bet. Television is one of the probably 3 most important things done in this century.
What would be the other 2?
Oh, my goodness.
The automobile, for sure.
Well, maybe, yeah. There's somebody else. The computer. The computer's probably.
I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah.
Airplane?
I don't think it's as important. See, television shapes people's lives every day, everywhere. What used to take us a month or 2 to find out, we know in 10 seconds today because of television.
Didn't that put an awesome responsibility on you?
Sure. Sure it does. I feel a responsibility. That's what bothers me about people in motion pictures and television and whatever, is that a lot of them have the lack of responsibility to the public. That you don't do things that are a bad influence on the public, that you can influence people to kill people or rob and steal and whatever. And I see some of these movies that I just can't stand because they have no redeeming qualities in any of their characters, you know. It's all right to do some of that stuff if you have someone who points out this is wrong. But there are movies now where everybody's wrong and nobody cares. They murder people, they kill people, they go on rampages. And I had that problem with Bonnie and Clyde, and I told Warren Beatty when they did the movie, I said, it's a wonderful movie and it's beautifully done. I said, but I don't like the idea of making heroes out of murderers.
And what was his response to that?
He said, it's just a story, you know. I said, yeah, I know it's just a story, but there's a responsibility when you put it out in front of the public to say this is right. Yeah. It's not right.
1960 was kind of a momentous year, I think. Roy Huggins left the show. Why did Roy Huggins leave Maverick? Do you recall that at all?
No.
New producer came in?
I don't remember. I left it.
Well, before you left it, you and Jack Kelly went on sort of a strike?
I didn't go on a strike.
No.
No, what happened with me was, and I thought Roy was there all the time. I don't remember him. He might have gone in after I left, but I don't think he did.
A fellow named Cole Shrapnel took his
I remember the name,
no.
But I left it in 60. What happened was there was a writer's strike. I had a 52-week contract with Warner Brothers. Had not very much money, $1,250 a week, as a matter of fact. And, of course, we didn't get residuals in those days. And the writer's strike came along in about, I guess, January, I don't know. And Warner Brothers laid me off because they said they couldn't get scripts. And I said, I don't care whether you've got scripts or not. They had, you know, for public appearances, for movies, they had requests for all of these things that they could have used me in. They said, well, we don't have writers for Maverick, and therefore they're going to lay me off. I said, you can't do that, so I sued them for breach of contract. And make a long story short, I won that lawsuit, and I got out of my contract with Warner Brothers. I remember my lawyer asked me what I wanted. He said, do you want a new contract? Do you want a raise? Do you want, you know, or do you want out? I said, I want out. I didn't want to be under contract to a studio anymore because they're making the decisions of my career. And these are the people that don't really care about my career. I care about it, but they don't. And therefore, when they, you know, they give me a picture that I didn't think was good for me, I'd have to do it, or they put me on layoff. And So I wanted to be in control of my career. I didn't want somebody else making those decisions. If I was going to be a success, I wanted to be my success. If I was going to be a failure, I wanted to be my failure, not somebody else's, because they made the wrong choices. So I wanted out, and that's what happened. I went to court, and I got out of the contract.
Did Maverick continued on, though?
Yeah, it went on for 2 more years.
Didn't they bring in Roger Moore?
Yeah, they made a deal with Roger. He was under contract to the studio also, and I think they had 8 shows, I'm not sure, to do that year, and they wanted him to do it. He said, I'll do it if you'll let me out of my contract at the end of the year. They said, good. And he did the shows, and he was gone. And then he went and did The Saint, which was a big success. But they went another year with Jack and a kid named Robert Colbert, playing Brent. They would put him in my clothes and light him very darkly, but as soon as he opened his mouth, they knew it wasn't me.
Well, what were your career plans at that time? You were off a hit television series?
Well, I didn't have any plans, but I knew there was work out there. The day I won the lawsuit, there was a script sent to me by 20th, The Comancheros. And I looked at it, and it was a transformation from the Maverick character into another character in the movie, but I didn't really care for the movie too much. And so I turned it down. And then about a week later, I saw that Gary Cooper had signed to do the other part. I said, whoa, wait a minute. Send me that script back. And I looked at it and I said, okay, I'll do it. I never heard from him again. Studio never talked to me again, didn't talk to my agent, didn't talk to anybody. And I know what happened. Jack Warner and Spiro Skouras got together. Spiro Skouras was the head of 20th, Jack Warner was Warner Brothers, and Jack said, don't you dare hire him. And they didn't. But not too long after that, Marty Rantzoff hired me, and then Willie Wyler hired me, and then it was all right, I could work anywhere.
So you're suggesting there was some sort of a blacklist?
It's not a suggestion. I'm 99% sure, but there's no way I could prove it. I'm sure it was just a phone call between Jack Warner and Spiro Skouras and try to track that down.
Were you impacted at all by the better-known blacklist that existed in Hollywood?
No, that didn't I didn't know anything.
But you were working in Hollywood during that time.
Yeah, but I wasn't that involved. It was people that I didn't know. I wasn't in that element. I wasn't in the big motion picture writer, director, in that vein.
So after Maverick, you pursued your motion picture career pretty much.
Yeah.
In 1963, you starred in what I always regard as one of my favorite James Garner movies, Americanization of Emily.
Yes, that's my favorite
film.
also.
I love watching it even today. Tell us about that. Was that done in England?
We were over there about 10 days is all. We did most of it here, and up in Oxnard. We did the landing of at Normandy and Oxnard.
In Oxnard.
Yeah, but we were over in England for about 10 days shooting, and that was a wonderful picture, just a wonderful picture. I love the writing, and Paddy Chayefsky wrote a brilliant script. It was a little testy at the time because of Vietnam, and this was an anti-war film, and they were frightened of it because it did, knock war pretty heavy, and a lot of people didn't think they should do that at the time.
Did you interact with Paddy Chayefsky at all?
Well, yeah, a little, but not a lot. I remember I was really pleased. They had a preview of the picture, and we had dinner that night, and he said, let's go for a walk. We walked around the block in Beverly Hills. And originally, Bill Holden was going to do that part. And Rantzoff got in an argument with Bill Holden's agent, and he got out of the picture. And I know what brought it on, the argument. And it was fear. They were afraid because Bill Holden was having trouble with the government at the time about doing his banking in Hong Kong or wherever. And they thought it was very un-American of him to do that. And there was a lot of publicity about it. And here he's going to do this anti-war film. And so Marty Ransoff went up and intentionally got into an argument with Charlie Feldman, who was Holden's agent. And finally, he said, "I'll give you $200,000 to get out of the picture." And Feldman said, "You got a deal." And Marty had already told me, or asked me, he said, "If Holden drops out of this, would you do the Charlie Madison part?" I said, "Oh, you bet," not knowing what he was going to do. And that's how it came about that I did the Charlie Madison role.
Your co-star was Julie Andrews. You had not worked with her before. How is it working with Julie Andrews?
She's the best. She is just the sweetest lady in the world. She's as professional as anyone you'll ever meet. She's charming, and she's a good person. She's just basically a good person. She treats everybody wonderfully, and don't get me wrong, she knows what she's doing, and she can be very firm about it. But her demeanor is one of the good people. I love her.
Can you believe that she was not in the film version of My Fair Lady?
Hey, what are you going to do? That's what I say, being under contract to studios and everything, when they make the decisions, you don't have much to say about it.
In 1964, you formed Cherokee Productions. Why did you do that?
Well, somebody was paying these actors money, and it had to be producers doing that. And so they must have had more money than the actors, so I decided I'd try my hand at producing, which I did a little bit of.
What did you envision for Cherokee Productions? What kind of productions did you want to do?
I just wanted to do really nice films. And I think the first one I did was Support Your Local Sheriff, which was a comedy western, and it did quite well. And then went on and did a few more.
You weren't only going to do motion pictures, you were going to do television as well.
Yeah, like I say, I'll do whatever comes along.
But these weren't productions that you necessarily would star in.
No, I think I worked in almost all of them. Well,
in '66, you did a motion picture called Grand Prix.
Yeah.
You worked for John Frankenheimer.
Yep.
That sort of had an impact on your life because you got involved in auto racing, did you?
Yeah. Well, when you look at it, I spent 8 months driving the best cars in the world on the best circuits with the best drivers. You couldn't have a better time than that as far as I'm concerned, because I love automobiles and always have, and I got very heavy into it. I learned to drive a race car.
Frankenheimer, a talented director, especially talented director?
Oh, there's no doubt about Frankenheimer's talent. He can be a bit of a, I don't want to say martinet, but Frankenheimer bulls ahead at anybody's cost. And I like John, don't get me wrong, and he's a wonderful director and has done great work, but he's only interested in what he's doing, and what other people are doing doesn't enter into his thinking. And he can be kind of cruel in that way. But it was great fun. I had a marvelous time on the picture, and it's one of my favorites.
It was a successful film as well.
Very successful. Yeah. Still is.
Right. In '69, you did Support Your Local Sheriff.
Yeah. Was it 69? I thought it was 66, 67.
My research shows it is 69, but you could be right. At any rate, was that a memorable production for you, or was it a fun?
Well, that was my first production.
That was your first.
But I swear it was in '66. Mm-hmm. I thought I did it just before I did Grand Prix. Maybe I did it, came back and did it just. No, when I came back, I did Hour of the Gun. No, I think your research is wrong. I think it's '66.
But you've been out of television for a while now, almost maybe close to 10 years.
Yep.
Were you thinking at all about television, or just?
No, I was just going along. As I say, I was doing whatever came
naturally.
Along. Yeah.
But in 71, you did Nichols, 71 to 72.
That's one of my favorites.
Why? Why was Nichols so?
The writing. I love the period.
The period was what?
Was the turn of the century. And my God, I had Frank Pearson writing and producing. John Badham directed some. Mita Rosenberg was one of my producers, and
Wasn't she your agent?
She wasn't my agent, and then I made a producer out of her in that series. And oh my goodness, Paul Bogart. We had so many wonderful directors and fine actors, and you know, I loved that series. I really did.
You did this for Warner Brothers and NBC.
Yeah, but they canceled it. And the next year, they didn't have one show on the air that had those kind of ratings.
What didn't work, if anything did?
Chevrolet didn't work.
Chevrolet was a sponsor.
I went back to Detroit with the pilot and showed it to all the executives at Chevrolet. And I heard one of the presidents or vice president's wife say, "Well, that's not Maverick." And that was the end of it. They wanted Maverick, is what they wanted. And this was totally different.
What was the show about?
It was about a sheriff at the turn of the century when there were no more gunfighters. The gunfighters were just gone and whatever. A little dinky town. He rode a motorcycle, you know, and it was more character than anything. It was just this little town with a sheriff and a deputy and a little girl that worked in the saloon, and the woman and her son who had the big ranch and yielded a lot of power, you know, and all that. And it was a comedy, and it was very funny, and people loved it, but they canceled it.
But you said Chevrolet did. I'm not sure.
They sponsored the whole show.
Yeah. And so they were not happy with the
No, it wasn't Maverick. Mm-hmm. And what they did, they said, well, we'll sponsor half the show, and we'll use that money to buy into other shows. So they had to go out and buy other sponsors for the other half of the show. And NBC went with it. And they dumped it at the end of the year, and it was, I consider it one of the better TV series I've ever done.
Was this a Cherokee production?
Yeah.
And so did you have the call on the actors and the creative people? I mean, was this all part of your overall supervision?
Yeah, it was my company.
Did you, is this where you started to hook up with Stuart Margolin?
Stuart Margolin, that's where I found him, yeah. Well, he wasn't lost, but I was looking for a sidekick, and I'll never forget, I went in to look at some film on different people, and his brother used to produce Love American Style, and he did all those little vignettes in between Love American Style. They had little vignettes, just a couple of minutes.
The continuities.
Yeah, and they showed me one where he was in a jail cell, and I don't remember what the dialogue was or anything, but he started to walk out and somebody slammed the door in his face. And he did a take that knocked me out of my seat. I said, that's the funniest thing. Somebody making me laugh, slamming a door in somebody's face. I said, he's good. And I just fell in love with Stuart then. And we just had so much fun. And we continue to have it for the last almost 30 years.
10 years later, you were back working for Warner Brothers, or with Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
But it was different. You weren't working for them. You were working with them.
With them,
right.
Yeah.
And that's what made it palatable.
Well, I remember Jack Warner said many, many years ago, he didn't say it about me, he said it about another actor. He said, I never want to see that man on this lot again until we need him. And that's what happened, you know. I was banned from the lot. I couldn't go on to get my hair cut, you know. And then a few years later, they needed me, so they hired me.
Not many people had a good opinion of Jack Warner. You likewise?
Yeah, I wasn't fond of the man. He was crude and rude and overbearing and whatever. And I think Jack Warner was frightened of me. I think he was scared of me. I think Errol Flynn picked him up once and shook him, and he thought he was going to throw him out the window or something. And Warner thought I was the same type of guy that might pick him up and shake him. And he could have been right. But so he stayed pretty clear of me. And though I was telling somebody about that director that drove me crazy, I had to go all the way up to Jack Warner. They put him on a feature that I was going to do. And I said, I can't work with this man more than a week. And I'll throw him out the door, And I talked to Steve Trilling, the head of studio, and I talked to everybody. And then I had to go to Jack Warner. And I went to Jack and I said, look, I can't work with him. The man's nuts. And I said, he just, I said, he's going to get pretty much what's in the script, but he's not going to add anything to it. And he'll probably bring it in close to schedule. I said, but that's not going to help the picture. And I said, the man's crazy. And I said, I'm going to pitch him out the door. He said, well, there's a personality conflict. Oh, we'll get another director, which they did. They got Joe Pevney. And Warner was great in that respect. He made a decision like that where nobody else would do it. And these are people, Steve Trilling and those people, had the power to do it, but they wouldn't do it.
So how are the studio moguls of that time compared to the committees that you have to go through?
Well, I think I'd almost rather deal with the mogul than the committee. Anything run by committee is going to get screwed up, no doubt about it.
Nichols' title changed a few episodes in to Jim Garner as Nichols.
It did?
That became the title.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
That was obviously would be an effort to give it some more punch.
That's probably NBC's input.
And in the last episode...
And there you're dealing with committee.
In the last episode, Nichols is assassinated.
Yeah.
And
that was my idea.
Why did you come up with that?
Because they'd canceled it. I said, okay, I'll fix them. They want to cancel it, we'll just kill him.
But his twin came into the picture.
Yeah.
Was that...
Well, we had to do the episode.
So was that an idea of having maybe it...
It was just a gesture on my part to say, you're going to cancel him, we're going to kill him. It was a pretty good episode.
It's great to be the producer, isn't it?
You bet. Good to be the king.
The Rockford Files came next in your career. It was in '74 that you starred in that NBC series.
73. 73, 74.
That season, yeah.
Yep.
How did, without it taking you too far off the track, how did that come about? How did you get into the Rockford Files?
Well, Meta Rosenberg, as I say, was my producer, had worked as my agent for many years. And Roy Huggins either sent me or her the script. And the script came out of a show that they were doing. I can't remember what it was.
Before you go too far into that, we have to pause for the change of day.